powerful amen. Just getting a little warm up here, sorry. Our next speaker, if you have not heard about this organization, which I had not before I put this together, they are doing great, great things. Mr. Kurt Van Schijver, Alliance Defense Fund.
Thanks, everybody. Thank you so much, everyone, for coming out here for Stand Up for Religious Freedom Rally. I want to point out this is one rally out of 170 rallies taking place all across the country today. You are not alone. You are not standing out here by yourself. You're united, coast to coast, with other believers. Other believers who are standing up to tell the government, we will not accept this mandate. Now, the other cities probably aren't standing up in the same blazing sun that we are, but kudos to you for coming out. Now, I've been asked to give a lawyer's perspective on this HHS mandate, and I know what you're thinking. Fantastic. A lawyer's going to talk. And I'm so excited to be the one here talking to you. I'll try not to be too boring. We'll be handing out complimentary pillows in the back. If you do want to take a nap, and there's a nice shady spot. What is this mandate that we're talking about here? The Obamacare requires every insurance company to offer contraception coverage to everyone who has coverage. And it's defined as part of healthcare. Now, how many of you think contraception is real healthcare? This is a real disease, pregnancy, that we have to prevent. Now, when they passed the law, they put something in the statute that said the secretary of the HHS is going to make a rule accepting religious groups. We're going to protect religious freedom. Did they do that?
No!
What they've done, in January, a rule was passed that said, that defined religious groups extremely narrowly. They said the religious group has to serve people of the same faith. They have to employ people only of the same faith. Now, I don't know about you guys. The last time I looked in the Bible, it seemed to me that Jesus was sitting down with prostitutes, tax collectors, persons that weren't of the same faith. Does anybody else remember that?
Yes.
So it doesn't even seem that Jesus and the apostles would satisfy this exemption as a religion. It's a fun point to make, but you have to ask yourself, would this apply to a mission church? If your church sends out a missionary group that's working with people of a different faith, is that church going to be required to provide contraception? It's an open question. Probably the bureaucrats in D.C. are going to say yes. Does that sound right to you guys? No. All right. Now what's wrong with this mandate? How many people here have heard of something called the First Amendment? Can I get a show of hands? Okay. All right, most of you. Well, apparently they haven't heard of this in D.C. Apparently this is still news to them out there. And Mr. Maggard just quoted for us the relevant part. The First Amendment, what's it say? Congress shall make no law infringing on the free exercise of religion. This is part of our Constitution. This is our formative, foundational document of our great republic. Today is the anniversary of the day that James Madison proposed the First Amendment. That's why we're here on this day. That's why this day was chosen. So, since the early times of our republic, this has been a critical aspect of our law. Now, in 1993, Congress passed a law to protect that free exercise. It's called the Religious Freedom Restoration Act, or RFRA, for lawyers who like acronyms. I mean, it sounds like a motorcycle starting up. RFRA. The Religious Freedom Restoration Act says that anytime Congress passes a law that's going to infringe on your free exercise, they have to show two things. They've got to show, number one, a compelling governmental interest. You can't be like, oh, we think this is a good idea. It's really got to be so essential to the working of government that it's necessary to infringe on people's rights. And number two, the law has to be narrowly tailored. The law really has to, there's no other way to accomplish this goal other than this law. Now this RFRA was passed 97 to 3 in the Senate. Ted Kennedy signed it. Bill Clinton signed it into law. I mean, this is not a partisan issue. Only 20 years ago, everyone in America understood religious liberty was worth protecting. Do we still understand that today? So this isn't a red state, blue state thing. This is an American thing. This is something we all should believe in because our founding fathers believed in. Religious liberty is part of the groundwork of our country, and I'm so glad to see all of you here today standing up to support it. Thank you. So I'm going to make 3 brief points then about this law. Number one, there's no need for the government to require Catholic groups to provide contraception. It's not as if there's some sort of crisis in access to contraception today. I mean, you can go into Walmart and buy this stuff for the cost of a Big Mac combo. You might as well say that there's a crisis in access to aspirin as to say there's a crisis in access to contraception. And the government also funds health clinics regularly. Thank you, I appreciate it. So if the government really wanted to fund contraception, it could just fund clinics that would provide it rather than asking churches to provide it when they don't even believe in it. There's no need to do this. The second problem with the law is what it does is it installs the president as some sort of theologian-in-chief over the whole country. So now the president's sitting there in Washington saying, okay, monks, you guys are really Catholic, and we're going to give you an exemption, but University of Notre Dame, I don't think so. You guys aren't Catholic enough. They're saying, you know what, St. Francis Church, sure, okay, you're Catholic. Catholic Charities of Fresno, you're not Catholic enough. I'm sorry, right to life. You're not Christian enough. Who wants to have DC making these decisions? The third point I'd like to make is that this isn't some isolated incident. This is part of an overarching strategy by certain persons in the country to restrict religious liberty. Now the Supreme Court had a case that came out a few months ago, 9-0, and they affirmed the critical holding that religious groups are a critical buffer between the state and the individual. When the state, the federal government, wants to oppress the people, we have groups like religious groups, like civic groups, our Salvation Armies, our Chambers of Commerce. These are ways for individuals to band together, to stand up together and be strong and say, no, federal government, you can't restrict our rights. And what the government's trying to do here is to lessen the importance of religious groups so that it can continue to grow and expand and take a greater part in all our lives. That's the kind of system of government they have in other countries. I can name China, North Korea. I mean, do we want to live in a government like China? All right, so this is the importance of coming out to rallies like this, to stand up together, to say, no, we're not going to stand for this, and you can't single us out. Because this isn't really a Catholic issue. This is a liberty issue. This is something that will affect all Christians. This will continue, and I hope that all of you will pray. You will continue to stand up together, talk to your family and friends, tell them why this is a bad idea, and continue to be good Americans. Amen.
Thank you. Well, I don't know about you guys,